بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم والحمد لله رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hanifa Hameed. I'm a registered dietitian. Alhamdulillah, I've been in practice for about 25 years. Subhanallah, I've been asked by ICNA Relief to speak to you about a healthy Ramadan and eating healthy during this month. But I want to start by reminding us that, subhanAllah, there are many people around the world right now that are struggling. SubhanAllah, the people of Gaza who are struggling to have the ability to even obtain food and even nourish their bodies. So I would remind everybody that let's make a concerted effort to make this Ramadan a less extravagant Ramadan than we've had in the past, and be cognizant of the people around the world that are struggling. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't enjoy the foods that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. But as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us in the Quran, وَكُلُّوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. And eat and drink, but be not wasteful, as Allah does not love those who are wasteful. Now, I want to start with talking about what the benefits of fasting are. From a religious perspective, fasting is a shield from many illnesses of, the heart, the soul, the body. But from a medical perspective, it's something very, very important to our health. And it actually is a time for our bodies to detox. And, our bodies are allowed to remove the harmful substances that we accumulate over the years of eating lavish foods and, eating things that sometimes we shouldn't really. And there have been numerous publications that have shown the benefits of fasting, and the fact that it helps with reducing weight and blood lipid levels. There's a reduction in blood pressure. There's improved immunity because our cells are able to be given the opportunity to rejuvenate. And they, from a cellular level, the blood, the cells of the body actually, there's evidence to show that the old and damaged cells are broken down during fasting, and this results in the buildup of new ones when we fast. And from a mental health well-being, studies have shown that fasting actually shows improvement in mood, in endorphin. In the first few days of fasting, there's actually an increase in endorphin levels, which actually increases alertness and mental well-being. And then even in cancer patients, there's been studies that have shown that there is actually large changes at the cellular level, where again the cells are broken down, the old and damaged cells are broken down, and then there's a rejuvenation of the new cells. And as of yet, there's actually no harmful effects that have been shown in fasting, short-term and even intermittent fasting. SubhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us to be able to have the intermittent fasting that now is such a trend, So when we're actually fasting, our bodies do not receive a regular supply of energy from food. So there's various nutritional pathways that are used by our bodies. The initial source of energy that's used by our bodies is actually a carbohydrate. And this is in the form of glycogen that's stored in our liver and muscles. And it's a short-term form of energy that's used by our body. And when that runs out, our body actually uses fat. And then the last source of energy that's used by the body is actually protein. But here's the benefit of subhanAllah fasting. As we fast, and as we go into the numerous days of fasting, after the first few initial days, the body actually gradually transitions from using carbohydrate, as an energy source to using fat, and that actually prevents muscle breakdown. So it actually has a protective, effect on our bodies. Now, despite the fact that there are sufficient energy sources available to our body, the fasting person may still suffer from minor and temporary side effects such as headache, fatigue, sleep deprivation, dehydration, anxiety, and even irritability. Now, again, from a religious perspective, fasting is not just a time to abstain from food, but it's also a time to abstain from our, behavioral aspect. So when irritability exists, we have, we have to control our nafs somewhat. But there are things that we can do from a nutritional perspective that can help. Now, one of the most important things to do is actually making sure that we do have suhoor and that we do eat a relatively balanced and decent iftar meal, and that we are, that we hydrate our bodies before beginning the fast and after breaking our fast. So making sure that we include plenty of nutrients, complex carbohydrates, fiber, protein, healthy fats, vitamins, and minerals within our diet. From a hydration perspective now, as the weather's starting to get a bit warmer, it's actually very important to make sure that we're drinking plenty of water. For men, it's actually important to have up to about 13 cups, and then women about sort of 8 to 9 cups. But if you're exercising, and I would suggest that, try to keep exercising within, your capacity and ability. Now, that could mean either a brisk walk or a trip to the gym, but the best time to do it is actually right before iftar, so that your body is about to get nourished. Now, some people prefer to do it first thing. I'm one of those people. I'm able to, it's easier for me to exercise first thing in the morning, because I still have some nutrition and energy, available to me. So I actually tend to exercise first thing and then go on with my day. But in either case, it's very, very important to ensure that you're hydrating well. And if you are exercising, to increase your fluid intake by at least 1 to 3 cups, roughly. Now, drinking water combined with electrolytes that are found in the foods that we eat, particularly fruit and vegetables, and the nutrients such as sodium, potassium, the minerals sodium, potassium, and magnesium, can actually help with absorption of water in the kidneys, which is actually important for ensuring balance of water in our bodies. And in addition, water aids with the digestion and prevents constipation, and the feeling of being bloated and that sort of thing if we're over drinking at the iftar, when we feel very parched. So it's important to drink throughout the time that we're going to Tarawih, for example. It's a good idea to have a water bottle with you, and sip on it continuously in between the rak'ahs. And even having a jug of water next to your bedside so that you drink it before you sleep and you drink it when you wake up for suhoor. And if you get up for the night prayers, again, using it to sip on throughout the night. But in addition to drinking water just by itself, breaking your fast, for example, with soups and salads that have vegetables in there, actually increases the water content of the meal. And salads, salad vegetables such as lettuce, spinach, kale, cucumbers, all of these things are actually very high in water. And adding other vegetables such as tomatoes increases things such as lycopene, and peppers, especially adding a variety of color to your meals increases the vitamins and minerals that you're providing in your diet as well. Now, fruits such as watermelon are actually really, really beneficial. Abu Dawood and Tirmidhi narrated that the Prophet ﷺ would actually combine watermelon with dates, because watermelon is actually considered a cold food and dates are actually considered warm food. So the effect of both of them together, eating them together, would actually provide the neutralization of the hotness of the dates. Other things such as grapes also provide a lot of water, but they contain something called resveratrol, which is actually an antioxidant and actually prevents damage at this, the cellular level. And also things like berries, variety, blueberries, blackberries, all of those things have antioxidants, which again are important for preventing damage at the cellular level. And as a result of that, fasting actually has an anti-aging effect because we're able to detox our bodies from the various foods that we eat regularly, and then adding certain healthy foods when we do break our fast, the absorption is actually much better, so that in itself provides an anti-aging effect. And it's important to actually ensure that eating fruit and vegetables, you make that part at least half of your plate. At least half of your plate should be at least vegetables, and then adding some fruit to that can add more to that half. But another useful thing to have with regards to hydration is actually coconut water, which is low in calories, but it's actually high in electrolytes, such as sodium, potassium, which again, as I mentioned before, is very important for the absorption of water. And then, subhanAllah, the provision of Zamzam. The Prophet ﷺ actually said that Zamzam is actually a nutritious food. And he also said that the drinking of Zamzam is for the purpose that the person drinks it for. And the Rasul ﷺ said, I drink it for relief of thirst on the day of resurrection. So subhanAllah, making dua, particularly when you're drinking Zamzam, is extremely important. And then I would want to sort of emphasize the foods that we should, or the things that we should avoid that will affect our hydration. So trying to wean off caffeine is extremely important, because caffeine is actually a diuretic. And when we're drinking a lot of tea and coffee, it actually results in dehydration and can actually affect your sleep. So I know Ramadan's starting, immediately, and we won't have necessarily time to wean off, but at least reducing the amount of caffeine, if you are going to be drinking it throughout the month of Ramadan, would be a good idea. But also avoiding things such as soda and foods that are salty. All of those things, again, will make you more thirsty, and also things such as spicy food. But also those things are just damaging to your health. They, you adding chemicals actually, takes away from the fact that the body is, able to detox while it fasts. But one thing I do want to stress, as I mentioned, is that ensuring that you have the suhoor meal. Try not to skip this meal, because Prophet ﷺ said that there's actually benefit in having the suhoor meal. So when you're skipping it, you're actually setting yourself up for headaches and unnecessary dips in blood sugar. And, as a result of that, you end up with headaches and nausea, fatigue, and, lack of concentration, because your brain is not getting the nutrients it needs through the blood flowing through it. Another important thing to do is make sure that you're eating slowly and that you're chewing well, so that you don't end up with indigestion, which results in bloating, bad stomachs, and gas, and all of that throughout the day. And also, avoiding overeating. This will just result in indigestion again, and can affect your sleep if you decide to sleep a little bit after suhoor. And then again, making the right food choices, avoiding foods that are high in fat, fried foods, sugary foods, processed foods. All of those things can actually just leave you feeling worse, because you get the peaks and troughs in your blood sugars due to the insulin response of the foods that we're eating. Particularly if they result in very high blood sugars, your insulin response is going to be very high, which results in those low blood sugars, resulting of, as a result of those high blood sugars, that you get high insulin response, which then lowers your blood sugar. So you get those peaks and troughs, which is actually, in the end, leaves you feeling hungry, and then it just makes you miserable throughout your fast. And as I mentioned before, it does affect your concentration and that sort of thing. And we want to make the most of our Ramadan in terms of our focus and concentration. So part of the suhoor meal would be to ensure that we're having a meal that's high in complex carbohydrates, high in fiber, high in protein. Now, an example of this is oatmeal. Now, I'm not advocating any specific type of diet. There are many types of diets that exist, but I'm talking from a very general perspective. So something like oatmeal is actually high in fiber and complex carbohydrates. And it will actually keep you sustained throughout the day and actually prevent those high and low blood sugars that can exist if you have simple sugars, simple carbohydrates that can, affect, you'll get a very high blood sugar, and then the blood sugar will drop quite rapidly because you're having food that's the sugars that are absorbed very, very quickly. Now, mixing that with nuts, chia seeds, flax seeds, even raisins, you're actually increasing the overall good fats from the nuts and the chia seeds and flax seeds, increasing the fiber. And then the raisins provide a good source of glucose as well. The Abu Dawood narrated that Prophet ﷺ would actually make a drink from soaked raisins called nabiz. Now, the other benefit of that is, subhanAllah, is that it actually it provides enzymes which are extremely important for digestion. So, again, you're benefiting your digestive system, and also there's it increases the good bacteria in your stomach as well, which again prevents the stomach aches and those sorts of things. Other things that you can include at the suhoor meal are fruit and eggs, which again are high in protein, and that will help you to feel more full as well. And then if you're having a balanced meal, it's not actually necessary for you to be taking vitamins, in form of pills and that sort of thing, because you're getting all the nutrients that your body needs from the variety of foods that you're eating in a balanced meal. Now, if it's actually difficult for you to eat a suhoor meal, it might be a good idea to have a light evening snack after Taraweeh, or having something small at the suhoor time, if you can have something at that point. But not choosing snack items, actually having like actual food items, such as cottage cheese, hummus, guacamole, nut butter on whole wheat toast, fruit, avocados, nuts, seeds, even making yourself a smoothie. It doesn't have to be a heavy meal, but something that's substantial and high in nutrients. So the Prophet ﷺ would actually make a porridge made from barley with milk and honey called talbina. Now, again, as I mentioned, porridge is high in complex carbohydrates, and then honey, subhanAllah, has shifa. And, there's numerous mentions of it in the Quran as well. And then when you're breaking your fast, make sure that you break the fast gradually. Having a huge meal at the iftar time will just result in indigestion, bad stomach, and gas. So it's a good idea to begin with dates, and then some water or milk, and small appetizers like soup, salads, and yogurts. And then going off and praying, and then coming back and having your meal. So it gives your body time to adjust, and it actually gives your stomach muscles time to adjust to what's going on after a long day of inactivity and rest. Your gut's been resting, so all of a sudden putting a huge amount of food into your body just makes it very difficult for it to get going. So if you give it time to get going, the muscles to start moving again, then you're going to better digest your food. The Prophet ﷺ would actually break his fast with a soup made of barley. Again, barley, you notice that that's something that he used in his suhoor and his iftar. Barley is actually high in complex carbohydrates, high in fiber, and it's actually also high in protein. So it's a really good way to break your fast, because it ensures that you're giving your stomach muscles time to adjust. But I also want to talk about the benefits of dates. SubhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us something that is so beneficial. People now are producing, granola bar type things with dates and that sort of thing. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided this wonderful food that basically is it can be considered a very complete food. It contains fast-acting carbohydrates, which get your digestive system moving. And they're an immediate source of glucose to the brain. But they also provide a continuous source of energy in the form of fructose and sucrose, which are sugars that are broken down more gradually. So your brain gets the immediate glucose it needs once you break your fast, and then it gets a continuous source of energy that it needs so that you don't get the highs and lows in the blood sugar. And dates are also high in electrolytes, magnesium, potassium, sodium, which again, as I mentioned, are important for hydration and ensuring, absorption of the water that we take in. But they're also high in iron, zinc, manganese, copper, selenium, which are also important for the bones and strong blood. So it allows for the oxygenation of the blood and transportation of nutrients throughout the bloodstream to the brain, to the various parts of the body, the muscles, so that we can be active and be able to move around. And then, subhanAllah, when we go for Tarawih, we're able to function. And then they're also high in B vitamins, which are important for nerve function. So right there, you see that it's important, like dates are a complete food. They provide everything that our body needs. So when you combine water with dates, your body gets hydrated much faster than with water alone. And so it's like a natural form of Gatorade. We don't even have to have that artificial Gatorade. Dates and water are a natural form, and they hydrate our body, allow hydration of our body, and they provide our body with the instant nutrients it needs. I know Sheikh Umar Suleiman, for example, had mentioned one time that for breakfast he just eats 3 dates and it sustains him throughout the day. Subhanallah. I mean, I myself, when I go to the gym, I just eat some dates and that's enough. I don't even need to be eating anything else. And I'm able to do a really comprehensive cardio workout. So you don't need to be eating a lot. Sometimes it's just eating the right foods. The other thing that's very interesting about dates is that they contain a special type of soluble fiber called D-glucan, which gets the gut moving, and along with the fluid intake, also increases satiety. And so it helps balance the blood sugar levels and improves digestive health by treating upset stomachs and increasing the good bacteria in the stomach, actually. And there's been so much research now done on dates and the benefits of them as being, very healthy foods. And the recommendation actually, subhanAllah, from a prophetic perspective, odd numbers is 3 dates a day. And they're actually very beneficial in lowering cholesterol levels and that sort of thing. And subhanAllah, if you look in the West, people struggle with high blood lipid levels, cholesterol, triglycerides, all of that. And the dates actually contain a special type of fiber called D-glucan, as I mentioned. And they act like a sponge and they bind the fats that are in the digestive tract and so lower the overall fats that are in our bloodstream. Other beneficial foods, that have similar nutrients are figs, and both of them have been mentioned in the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ actually said that a home with no dates is like a home with no food, subhanAllah. And watini was zaytun. The figs are mentioned in the Quran as well, again, because they contain beneficial nutrients. They help restore the sodium and potassium balance in the body. They're very useful for hypertension, high blood pressure. They act as a natural laxative. So, combining dates and figs when you're breaking your fast is absolutely amazing. And they also contain antioxidants and polyphenols that are actually very important in removing free radical toxins that are in our body, which again help with the anti-aging process. And figs themselves actually have an alkaline effect on the body. So they actually balance out the acid in the stomach when we're breaking our fast. We've had the acids are churning around in our stomach. So when we're actually eating figs, it balances out that acid, neutralizing the acid in the stomach somewhat, or neutralizing the effect. So we don't get like heartburn and things like that. But generally making sure that when you're eating whole foods like fruit and vegetables that provide hydration and can also help get the digestive juices flowing, and they provide electrolytes. And then, the whole digestive process is aided in as well. So when it comes to actually mindful meals, it's actually important to, as I mentioned, make sure that you're having foods that are high in complex carbohydrates. These can include things like barley, wheat, oats, quinoa, lentils and beans, brown rice, whole wheat pastas. And obviously, if you're on a gluten-free diet, there are plenty of gluten-free options, lentil-based pastas and things like that. And obviously, as I mentioned, increasing your intake of fruit and vegetables is extremely important because of the provision of vitamins and minerals. And if you're prone to gas, it's actually useful to add probiotics before meals, and actually using apple cider vinegar is actually a very useful way to prevent gas. And including things like yogurt, kefir, these types of things are also very beneficial. And as I mentioned, there is the risk of constipation, so making sure that you are active, but also making sure that you're hydrating well. And avoiding simple carbohydrates as much as possible, because it just makes you a lot hungry a lot quicker. But when you're breaking your fast, certain simple carbohydrates can help your body recover quickly. As I mentioned, dates, figs, dried fruits all contain simple carbohydrates and also electrolytes as well. But they also do contain fiber as well, which is more beneficial than just eating white rice and white pasta and things like that. And making sure that you're having plenty of protein in your diet as well, about a quarter of your plate. Now, obvious things such as chicken, fish, eggs, that sort of thing. But if you want to go on the slightly lower fat side, things such as beans and lentils, legumes, are actually really beneficial, but combining them together. So, things like halim, that type of thing, where there's a mixture of lentils and things, help to provide a complete protein. Beans and lentils on their own are known as incomplete proteins. But when you combine certain beans and lentils together, the amino acids that are individually present in those combine together to produce the complete protein. And ensuring that you add vegetables for all your meals for the fiber, and water is also very, very important. And that should be about half your plate, as I mentioned previously. Then good fats that are found in, oily fish such as sardines, salmon, sea bass, tuna, are also extremely important. And they actually contain the ACE vitamins, vitamin A, C, and E, and selenium and zinc as well. But also things such as flax seeds, chia seeds, all of those also contain the good fats, which are actually very, very important for brain function and memory. And so, helping us to be more alert and overall reduce inflammation in the body. And so from an anti-inflammatory perspective, they are actually helping with the detoxification that occurs in our body as well. But also, subhanallah, as I said, the zaytun, the olive, is mentioned in the Quran and the benefits of it. And the Rasul ﷺ said that eat the olive and use it as an ointment, as it comes from a blessed tree. So subhanallah, now there's so much research showing the benefits of olive oil, using it in your hair, drinking it, applying it as an ointment, as the Rasul ﷺ said. Again, because of the beneficial monounsaturated fats that are contained in it, which are actually good for overall cardiac health. And also nuts and seeds, which are important sources of vitamin E, are good for your skin, good for cellular regeneration, and for even good hair growth as well. So overall, avoiding saturated fats that come from animal sources is the best way to go, and generally not overdoing it with the fats and frying things and that sort of thing, because ultimately it's just going to result in weight gain, indigestion, and gas. And then, as I mentioned before, adding things like yogurt, kefir, all of those provide probiotics to your diet. But also, dairy products are very high in calcium and vitamin D. And they actually are very, very beneficial with regards to bone loss, minor bone loss that can occur if you're especially inactive. So a good example of a meal that could be had at breakfast that has various nutrients from an anti-inflammatory perspective is like a Greek yogurt parfait made with chia seeds, flax seeds, berries, a little raw unfiltered honey if you don't have any immune issues, which contains phytochemicals and flavonoids, and actually has anti-inflammatory and immune system benefits. And actually, Honey also has an antibacterial effect, and you can actually even apply it as an ointment. So when you take it orally, you're actually helping to increase the good bacteria in your stomach. And subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned honey in the Quran. And He says in the Quran, there comes forth from the bee's belly a drink of varying colors, wherein there is healing for men. SubhanAllah, if you look at the mention in the Quran, honey is so beneficial. So if you can add it to wherever you can in your diet, that's definitely a good idea. From as I mentioned the anti-inflammatory and immune benefits that it provides. And I want to quickly touch on the fact that it's extremely important to try to keep active as much as you can during Ramadan, so that whatever we're eating, when we're burning off to some extent, and we're not actually gaining weight during the month. So it's extremely important to ensure that we are active in some capacity, as I mentioned before. Just even walking around just before iftar, if you're able to go to the gym, doing that, or working out right after fajr, after the suhoor. But making sure that you are having a balanced diet and having plenty of fluids. So inshallah, I hope this was of benefit, and anything good that I said is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and anything bad that I said or anything incorrect that I said is from myself. And may Allah help us to have a wonderful Ramadan and benefit from this Ramadan in health and also in body, mind, and soul, inshallah. May Allah reward us all, and Allah allow us to fulfill our intentions in this month of Ramadan. I just want Jazakallah khair, inshallah. May Allah provide us with the best of health. Assalamu alaikum.